G'day guys, welcome back to Supercoach with DR and welcome to the Round 10 stock market. Happy Wednesday, hope you're having a ripping week so far. And what a week it was in Supercoach. Absolute carnage for many. If you managed to avoid some or all of the carnage, then kudos to you, as my man Spills would say. But I think for most of us, we copped something, didn't we? We had injured primos, underperforming primos that got subbed at three-quarter time, Rory Laird, Jack Steele. I'm looking at you. The rookie situation is pretty dire at the moment. It's like we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Up the top of the list this week, we've got Blake Drury, who scored a massive 17 points on the weekend. Right down the bottom, we've got poor old Callum Mills. And again, my man Janeth brought him in last week, hoping for a decent role and a decent score. But unfortunately, he was out of the game early, and he should be out for at least 4 weeks. So here's a must-trade out option. LDU finally gave us a good score, but again, he's got a hammy, out for at least a month. Bailey Humphrey, if we go back towards the top, he scored a decent 117, but at the same time, he's going to cost you twice as much as what you're going to have to pay up for Blake Drury. And right in the middle here, I think we've got a fairly decent upgrade option this week. In saying that though, some are questioning his role. He hasn't set the world on fire, but I really like Zach Merritt's fixture, so we'll talk about him when we get into the video as well. A couple of housekeeping things before I do get right into it. We have a new feature this week, and it's the buy color code. So when you look at the bottom of each screen, you'll see a color code. So if a player is highlighted in green, they've got the round 12 buy. If they're highlighted in orange, it's round 13, just Gold Coast and Geelong obviously. If they're in round 14, it's in blue. And if it's round 15, it's in red. And that seems like the toughest buy for most of us, particularly in our forward line. So that's just an added little feature just to help you out. And for this week as well, I've taken away the notes section or the symbol section, and I've replaced that with percentage owned. So give me some feedback, let me know what you think about that. I haven't included both because particularly when you're looking at it on a phone for the visual, it gets a little bit too busy and it can be a little bit hard to see, and some of the info gets lost in there. So that's the reason behind why I haven't included everything. But again, open for feedback. I'm always looking to improve this, make it bigger and better each week. So that's another change as well. Let me know what you think about it. So I think that's pretty much it for the housekeeping. Let's get right into it, guys, and see who's sitting at the top of the list for the 500k plus defenders. So as you can see here, down the bottom we have the buy color key. Just again, round 12 is in green, round 13 in orange, round 14 in blue, and then round 15 in red. So we'll start off with the greens here. We've got the Seagull, Sinclair, and Ryan. Seagull got a pretty lucky 50 on the weekend to slot a nice goal. Average and 3-rounder, 102, 102, break even 103. So talk about consistency there. He's been a really solid pick for us this year. Sinclair has actually been really disappointing. With Steele coming back into the side, I was expecting his CBAs to drop, but unfortunately that hasn't really been the case. As a defensive option, I love Sinclair, but playing through the midfield, I'm certainly not as big on him. Luke Ryan, again, look at that average, 116. I say it each and every week, but the most underrated defender in the game. That 3-rounder is only 107, so there are a few other players that are in hotter form currently. But again, I think he's going to be one of those blokes you can just lock in and expect basically 100 plus every week. Then on to Tom Stewart. Look, this man is just super consistent. He'll give you, look, an ordinary game from time to time. But if you're looking for a defender that is just going to rock up each and every week, got a great buy, then here's your man. He had 13 touches at halftime, 80 points to his name. That's brilliant. He gave an unlucky free kick away to Mansell, which resulted in a goal, but that was basically his only mistake. We were just waiting for Richmond to kick a point as well. I think they had 6 or 7 straight at one stage, but he finally got a couple. But one he didn't play on from. That's all good, though. All in all, awesome first half. On his way to close to scoring what he did last year, which was around a 160. But in the third, he was stuck on the bench for over 7 minutes. Super frustrating. That denied his ability to score. Only the 9 points there. And with 2 minutes to go in the last, should have had an effective tackle, holding the ball free for and a disposal. But the umpire called high contact, which was an absolute killer. But you know what you're getting with Stewart. And at 600k, the safest pick here, in my opinion. In blue, we've got Dawson. we don't even need to mention Jordan Dawson. Had a poorer game last week. If you look at the stat sheet, you'd be surprised to see a sub-90 type score, but he'll bounce back. Would I be buying at this stage? No, with that break even. But after his buy, hopefully we can get him at closer to the 600k mark. Dacos we've all got. Doesn't really warrant much discussion. And James Sicily, I'll tell you what, if I didn't already own Day, Seamus Mitchell, and Josh Weddle, I'd seriously consider Sicily. I think he's up with the best buys that you'll see on this list. We know he hasn't been in fantastic form, but last week they did bring in an extra tool. Blank, I think he got subbed off in the end through injury anyway, but I think that's a good sign for Sicily. They hopefully want to free him up a little bit more. The role that he's been playing over the last month, if you take last week out, hasn't been ideal, but we know that he can score well. He's a red-hot chance, and I won't say guarantee, but pretty safe, I think, to finish around the top 6 defenders. And if you don't have, as I mentioned, those other Hawthorn blokes in your side, and you can carry him through the buys, then he would be a bloke that I'd have a serious look at. And then you got Zeeble and Doherty. Jay-Z, 131 for a 3-round average. This bloke just has not let me down all year. We are paying close to 600k now, so I would be wary of that as you're not getting that value. And Doherty, talk about a burn, man. I started with him this year, and it was very stressful, to say the least. But his hit back played really well the last couple of weeks, and at 518k, I think he presents pretty good value. He's the cheapest player on this list. We saw what he did in the preseason. That's why lots of us brought him into our sides. Had that massive game. Does possess a really nice ceiling. But again, he's got the red buy, and that is very tricky for some. On to the defenders, 250 to 500k. Up the top, we have Ruben. He's hit form again, and if you held on to him all this time, you have now been rewarded again. A break even of 5 means that he should make another 40k and a pretty easy buy flip. Rory Atkins had a much better second half where he was able to accumulate more of the ball. Used it well, role looks solid, so I expect him to keep his spot for now, but probably only one poor game away from being dropped, and definitely listen out for when Lockie Weller is due back. You've got Darcy Wilmot, Pepsi Max King, fantastic game on the weekend, spending a little bit more time down back with Richie out of the side, and I think that will help him to score a little bit better. Keep on to him, that break even of 35, he should be able to break that this week, or beat that this week against the Suns. Tommy Atkins, we've got a few interesting picks here in Atkins, Ash, and Redmond. So if I was to pick out of the 3, I'm probably going Redmond. Look, with Atkins, you've got a pretty friendly buy. You've got some DPP. Ash shares the same DPP, but that red buy again just puts me off. You look at the season averages there. So you got Tommy with 85, Lockie with 81, 3 round at 90 and 92. And then we look down to Redmond with that season average of 92. So that's 10 more than Lockie Ash. And he's also putting some points on Tom Atkins there. So let's talk about Redmond. I think he's a legitimate option at 445k. But if you select him, be prepared to go on a roller coaster ride. You'll certainly experience the highs and the lows, and possibly the loop at times. His scores over the first 9 rounds read 118, 110, 49, 128, 72, 89, 51, 76, and a 136 last week, which goes to show that he is very much up and down. It was his best score of the year last week. Had a great game, had 10 kick-ins, played on from everyone, which is exactly what we want to see. Good man, Mason. Keep in mind that Ridley was out, though, and he generally takes around 30+% of the kickings. Now, one thing to note with the Red Dog is that he loves a win. He averages 107 in wins and only the 80.2 in losses. Now, we can always cherry pick numbers to suit some sort of narrative, but just for context, before his big score last week, he was only averaging just over 66 in losses. Now, this may actually be good news in the short term. He's already played 6 out of the current top 8 teams. He then has Richmond, West Coast, North, and Carlton. 2 winnable games, as well as, well, 2 games that you should go close to just locking him in for the 4 points. North and West Coast are both easy kills at the moment. And remember, this is well documented as well, that they also play North and West Coast again to open our Supercoach finals. The main issue here is, it's his floor. And whether or not
that season average of 92 actually warrants a spot in your back six. I can see it working in the short term for sure, but long term, I do have some question marks. In saying that, I think he's clearly the best defensive option under 450k. If you're prepared to spend up a little bit more, the 472 mark, you do have Lockie Whitfield here. Clearly has the best 3-round average, the only bloke here that's currently in triple figures, low break even of 68. If he scores a 90, he's looking to go up around 10k, only 1.1% ownership, so certainly a pod. But the trust factor with Lockie Whitfield, it's just not there for me. I've been burnt many times in the past. I'm sure that you have been too. So for me, I wouldn't be confident enough to go there. But if you want to take a punt, I suppose you can. Connor McKenna, he's been really disappointing since Richie went down. I was expecting him to step up, take on more responsibility in his absence, but it's like he's even gone backwards. Very strange and unexpected. 35 points on the weekend, had a few kick-ins, but only played on 66% of the time. Also had a brain fade, gave a silly 50-metre penalty away, just toe poked the ball away. A really bizarre decision. I was initially big on holding him up until the bye, but if he spits out, say, another couple of 50s in the next 2 weeks, he'll drop close to 30k. The other issue is that downgrade options, will they even be available next week? I'm really not too sure. So it's almost like you've got to commit to hold until the bye, or else get out of the pick. I'm still undecided at the moment. And down the bottom, Will Day. Look, he's been an ordinary pick so far, but I still have the faith. No way that I'm trading, but at the same time, no way that I would be buying at this stage.
On to the defenders under 250k. We've got a couple of blue, couple of red, and a green here. At the top, we have Josh Weddle. I brought this bloke in last week and was really impressed with his performance. Made a couple of mistakes, few errors, particularly in the first half. There was one time where he was trying to draw a player and then handballed in between two teammates, but that's all good. Again, like last week, trying to take the game on. I'd really always try to encourage that from a young player, but where he did most of his damage was at the start of the third quarter. He came out like a man possessed in the first few minutes. 3 touches, an intercept mark, and a long goal from 50. All the boys got around him. Fantastic to see. So I was impressed. I think he keeps his spot. I think he solidified that at least for the next week or two after that performance. They'll want to get games into him. I'd like to see him eventually push up into a wing. This is from a Hawthorn perspective. From a Supercoach perspective, I think it's probably best down back. I don't overly love that wing role, but either way, we just want to see him in the side, and it is good that he does have a couple of strings to his bow as well, able to play down back as well as push through the middle. So at the end of the day, I think, well, after 1 week, he's certainly won the battle, the Atkins versus Weddle battle, because that was a decision or a choice that many people looking to make last week, and Weddle ended up outscoring him, obviously at a lower price as well. So 15.9% of coaches have jumped on him, and he's looking to go up over 30k if he can hit a pretty modest projected score of 44. Ollie Lord, break even of -4, 158,600. Look, he'll make a little bit of coin, but not someone I'd be jumping on. A forward for Port Adelaide. Look, may score well, may have a spike game, but I doubt it. Job security isn't fantastic, wouldn't say as well. Now, Aaron Francis, if you look at this game in isolation, you'd think, wow, where has this man been? What has been going on? But the issue is, before last week, he has been playing up forward. But due to the McCartan boys being out, you got Rampy out. Their defence at the moment, their tall defenders, are dropping like flies up there at Sydney. So Francis has come in, stepped into that role, the role that we thought that he'd play as opposed to that forward role, and he's managed to score really well. The issue is, as soon as these other blokes come back, he'll either push forward if he's lucky, or most likely out of the side again. So someone I wouldn't be jumping on. I just don't think there's enough long-term security with the pick to make it worth your while. Seamus played a really good game on the weekend. 232,700 now with an average of 63. 3-rounder is 56, but he had 27 touches, 15 kicks, 12 handballs, 8 marks. Only the 4 contested though, and didn't use the ball overly well. Pumped out to 74, which is really nice, but his Supercoach to DT ratio wasn't overly fantastic because in fantasy, he scored a nice 95. So that would have been nice for Supercoach, but we're not complaining with the mid-70s, are we? So you certainly don't trade him in now at the price, but as owners, you'd think he's got some pretty good job security, just like Josh Weddle. So I'd be shocked if either Weddle or Mitchell were omitted this week, probably even the next. I think they've bought themselves at least a couple of weeks, but again, I'm not Sam Mitchell, and nothing's ever really a guarantee, is it? But at this stage, I am really, really happy owning both Weddle and Mitchell. And if you can, I'd advise trying to have Mitchell in your forward line as opposed to having them both in your back line, because if you've got loops, you might be able to take advantage of both of them. If you've got them both in the back line, for example, then it's very hard to loop, isn't it? Obviously, having the two Hawthorn boys. Gin Cotter, we were expecting this bloke to give us some reliable on-field scores, but he gave us a low 30. Only the 9 touches, 3 kicks, 6 handballs, a tackle, and a solitary mark. So, does he even keep his spot this week? I think there's question marks over that. Please, 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 we can't have another dead rookie. The unfortunate thing is, with that really low score in his system for the next price rises as well, he's just not going to make as near as much coin as what we're thinking, at least in the short term. He can always bounce back, and hey, if it goes another 80 type score, then we're laughing. Things are all good, but yeah, I'm a little bit worried about this selection, but basically every team in the top 10% owns him, so we're pretty much in the same boat. On to the midfielders, 500k plus. You can see a bit of a range of colours here. If we're looking at the average, there is one clear standout, and that's Track, almost a 120 average on the season. And if we take a look at the 3-round average again, one clear standout, and that's Track with a massive 146. In fine form, this man. I'm a little bit spewing, to be quite honest, because I've got the Clary Brownlow Predictor Select card, and if Clary wins the Brownlow, you get sent out something special. The way this man's playing, the card's going to be bloody useless at the moment, so settle down please, Track, and leave a bit more to Piggy. But look, we'll chat about a few of the plays just quickly. Tommy Mitchell, if you're looking for consistency, and if you just want to lock in, 100 to 110 each week, then Mitchell could be a man. Are we happy enough with that in our midfields? Well, the way some of our premiums have been extremely inconsistent this year, then you may want to go that way. Completely up to you. If you're not a fan of Titch, you could always go to Goey. He's only really had the 2 poor scores. I remember one of those games, he had a heap of free kicks against, so maybe we can give him a slight mulligan for that. I think with Cox and Cameron coming back on the side, that's going to help the Collingwood midfield. That's both De Goey and Mitchell. I think De Goey's probably got that higher ceiling. He's a more exciting player to own, but at the same time, he does have the tendency to do something stupid in season. But the trust factor has gone up for me with Jordan, and I think if you're looking for that budget option that could push maybe towards top 12-ish, then De Goey could be a man. I'm not huge on him, but at the price, I think he presents a fair bit of value. And the other bloke there in blue is Tim Kelly. I've never really been a fan of Kelly, but in saying that, he has been in some pretty fine form lately. 3-rounder of 101 isn't fantastic though. Playing for West Coast, often a tag target, just one that I tend to stay away from. We've got 3 blokes in green that share the round 12 bye. That's Brayshaw, Warner and Parker. If you compare Warner and Parker's average and 3-rounder, 95 and 108 compared to 94 and 107. So with Warner, you're saving over 10k. I think he's a more exciting pick to own. Remember, Supercoach is all about having fun as well. And watching this bloke run around, particularly bursting out of those stoppages, kicking a long bomb from 50, is super fantastic. So I would prefer Warner just because of the excitement factor, but Parker, although he's not a really sexy pick, he should give you some pretty consistent scores and the highest CBA mid for the Swans this year. And Andy Brayshaw, we talked about him a lot in the last couple of weeks. Fairly disappointing on the weekend, but if you look at that 3-round average, 112, that is the highest out of the 3. The season average is 97, so a couple of points up on Warner there as well. So you are paying up a little bit more for Brayshaw, but he's probably my most preferred pick here. We did go through that audio last week where he did mention that he's been battling with a knee issue and a couple of other niggles during the season, and for 2 weeks now,
he's been feeling as good as he has been all season. So that's a real positive for Brayshaw. Freo are playing some better football. So if I was to pick out of the three, I would lean just towards Andy. But I don't think any of these players have a really realistic shot of finishing in the top 8 mids. And we've got the two GWS boys in red in Kelly and Green. Green is owned by over a third of the competition, whereas Kelly, under 5% of the comp. Had a really decent game last week. Been a little bit up and down, Josh Kelly, but if you're comparing him to the other players on this list, I definitely think he's got the most potential, probably along with his teammate in Tommy Green. We're obviously taking Track out of the equation here because he is simply on another level. But the issue, again here, is the fact that they've got that red bye. It's super tough, and I don't think many of us are going to be looking to invest there.
On the next list, we've got an even split for buys here. So missing in round 12 will be Caleb Strong, Jack Steele, and Lachie Neale. Super disappointing seeing Steele subbed at 3/4 time. Could not believe that as an owner. So I certainly wouldn't look to invest in him at the moment. Hopefully he'll be right to get up this week, but yeah, just not looking right at the moment, Jack Steele. Super disappointing. Lachie Neale, another one you can just wait until after his bye. There's no way I'd be looking at him at this stage. Look at that 3-round average, 99. That's super low for his standards, as is his season average of 107. So with a break even of 155, watch for now, and then he should be pretty cheap after his bye. Could be a pretty decent get, but at the same time, do you really want him? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see how he goes over the next two. And Caleb Strong, clearly the best player, well, Supercoach-wise, this year, out of the three. Average of 114 on the season. 3-rounder of 111. He's been in better form. There was one stage, I think, he had a 3-rounder of close to 130, close to 140 something. So, regressed a little bit there, but overall, been a fantastic selection. We'll go to the blokes in blue now. So, Laird, yeah, similar to Jack Steele. I'm an owner, and just not happy. Another bloke that was subbed at 3/4 time, had that massive hit to the ribs there. I don't think he's any doubt for this week, but just been carrying the Eagles all season. Round one's too hot for him. Just been, without doubt, a failed starting pick. Yeah, not owning him last year was an absolute killer, and owning him this year has been an absolute killer too. So just cannot win with the Rory-led selection. Clary, he's pretty much a good trade in any week, I think. The most consistent scorer in our midfields this year, along with the Bond. You just can't go wrong with Clary. If you can afford him, then I think go for it each and every week. And Zach Merritt, this is a bloke that I'm super keen on this week. And if you've been watching the Stockies and my round reviews for probably the last 3 to 4 weeks, you would have heard me mention that I'm really going to target Zach Merritt come round 10. And guess what? Round 10 is here. Now, he hasn't been setting the world on fire. We can see that 3-round average is 97, and it's the lowest on this list. So you're probably asking me, well, why are you bringing in a bloke that simply isn't in fantastic form? You're paying 564,100 for him. It's not chicken feed. So a lot of it comes down to his fixture. He's playing the Tigers and then West Coast and North Melbourne. I just can't see him not scoring well in this 3 to even 4 week period. He's an elite player. He's an elite user of the ball. Parrish is gone. Setterfield's gone now. So hopefully, surely, he goes back to getting right in there in the stoppages, at least trying to get some more contested pill for us. He's just been hanging around there, played a little bit out of position. CBA rate is still okay, so he's still spending enough time in the middle, but we certainly want to see a little bit more. We want to see him right in the thick of things. So, given the fact that those two players are out, look, it may benefit, say, who are Hobbs more, maybe a Shield, a package type player, but surely with someone like a Parrish out, they've got to get quality in there, and that quality is Zach Merritt. But the big attraction to this bloke is his fixture. And remember, come the start of our Supercoach finals, he plays West Coast and North again. So what's he got? Around 14 games left, 13 games left. 4 out of those games will be against West Coast and North Melbourne. So super opposition coming up. I am all over the Zach Merritt selection. And then we got the 3 blokes in red. So you got Libba there. He's been in fantastic form. Projected score this week, 142, if you don't mind. 4% of coaches have jumped onto him. Issue again here with all the guys in red it is not a fantastic buy. But if you look at the 3-round average, he's up there with the most informed midfielders in the comp, and that season average, he is at the top of tier 2. So you've got players like your Clary, Bond, and Petrarca, who are certainly tier 1. Libba is right there behind him, tier 2 in my opinion. Sam Walsh, now very, very likely that this bloke is going to be getting DPP status. So I'll probably be waiting for that news and then assessing whether or not I can fit him into my forward line. Is he worth it as a pure midfielder? Well, you look at his season average, 115. He's doing better than Laird, better than Neil, better than Merritt, even better than Sarong, who I was giving a bit of a pump up before. So I certainly think that that's an option if you can carry him during that buy. And the Bond, well, I wouldn't recommend to buy him at 718,000. That break even is dead bang on his 3-round average, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him score that, to be quite honest. But with the money that you're paying for him, 718k, surely during upgrade season and the upcoming buys, you could use that money to better effect. You could get someone like a Walsh, save literally 100k, and use it elsewhere. So although I absolutely love the Bond, and I think we all should have started with him, I started with him anyway, and he's really rewarded me, I just think he's too expensive to purchase at the moment. On to the midfielders, 250 to 500k, and as you can see, not great reading here. We've got 4 injuries. We've got Setterfield, Hopper, LDU, and Callum Mills all look like must-trade out options at the moment, unless you've got some really decent rookie coverage and you can loop them to see if they get a decent score and even wait a week just to get some more data on some other players. But I don't think many coaches are going to be in that position. Apart from those 4, you've got Oscar Baker up the top there. His break-even is in the green, just by the 1 point. So he's a hold, he's a trade, do whatever you want to do there. I'd be leaning towards trade if you can do that. You've got Ashcroft. Now, his break-even is in the red there at 85. But keep in mind, he's playing at the Gabba, playing the Suns. I think there's a high chance he could even go past that break-even. I'm looking to hold him probably until his buy. Warple, 99 for a break-even. He is, though, coming up against West Coast, so I think he could even be a hold for this week. If you want to flip him, that's fine as well. But, look, you're looking for these types of opposition midfield matchups, aren't you? Either North, or West Coast, or Hawthorn. I think you're absolutely laughing. And Warple plays for Hawthorn himself, so he's not going to play himself. He's got 2 really friendly matchups, you'd think, and that's going to be North and West Coast. Playing West Coast this week, I would actually be tempted to hold if you can. And then the last bloke here is Matt Kennedy. We've certainly seen the good, the bad, and the ugly from him this year, and very much a risk versus reward pick. So, look, for me, to put it simply, I think it's all about his CBA rate and role. If we go back to rounds 1 and 2, scores of 96 and 110, he had 50+% CBAs. We thought, here we go, a decent pod. But then that CBA rate dwindled. He came back in round 5 after a layoff, scores a 41, then an 80, then a 25-36 sub-affected. So that CBA rate going down, missing some football, really did result in some poor scoring, and particularly being played out of position. However, last week had 57% CBA rate, collected 27 disposals, laid 6 tackles for close to 90 points. Remember, he did average 95 plus last year, so history says in the right role, he should be a decent selection and can make you, well, I'd say at least 100k. The issue is this: do you trust Fossey? Is he going to keep his midfield minutes, or will he continue to be played out of position? Is he one bad game away from being relegated to the sub again? I'm really not too sure. He doesn't have a fantastic buy, being that round 15 buy. You can see him in the red there, so another thing to take into consideration. So if you feel that you've got a good read on this pick, and you do think that he will continue to obtain a 50% plus CBA rate, then I think you can go for it. If not, if your hopes aren't that high, then it's probably a pick that I would skip for now. On to the midfielders under 250k, and we do have some really interesting names here this week. Now, on a usual week, we wouldn't be too excited about some of these prospects, but we are getting desperate. And we do really need to talk about, well, anyone that's coming up to the bubble or got a low break even at this stage. That's just the way that it is. So we've got two blokes here in the orange in Nevitt and Humphrey. They share the round 13 bye. Sharp and Johnson got the first one, round 12. And then we got Drury and Rouston who have the round 15 bye. So quickly on Rouston, the only reason I got him up here is I did have a couple of comments saying that, this is on my last round review, that he absolutely smashed it in the twos, had almost 20 clearances, 30 plus possessions. So there is a chance that he can come into the side this week. I'm still not confident on that though, but I do appreciate those comments, guys. If he does, I'm absolutely wrapped as an owner, but I was actually planning on trading him out because I view him as a dead rookie, but hopefully that's not the case. But keep in mind, even if he does come into the side, he'll probably won't be playing the same role as what he's been playing in the twos. So, yeah. Oh, it's been a tough home. A tough home. Matty Johnson, 185,500. I'm not sure if he plays this week. He's obviously available for selection after having 2 weeks off through suspension, but I've got a feeling, given the fact that Freo have been in decent form the last couple of weeks, obviously got up last week, that they won't make a heap of changes, and he may have to work his way back into the side with some really good waffle form. But yeah, as an owner, again, fingers crossed. And then we go into these 4 blokes here who deserve a little bit more discussion. Nevitt, I haven't got great knowledge on. 207,800. Negative break even of 25 though, looking to rise 30k with a projected score of 45. We've got Sharp there. Got a lot more knowledge on him as a Brisbane man. We've got Humphrey and then Drury as well. So, look, you can all see the visuals there. Instead of me talking and possibly repeating what I've said either in my round review or the Supercoach Swordplay pod, I'm going to put a snippet in from the Swordplay potty. Now, I know that many people don't get around that as much as what they do for the stock market. The views on the podcast are much lower than the stockies, so there'll be many of you that are watching now that didn't actually get to catch that. So what I will do is include that now, and we've got myself, Janeth, Spills, and the Great Shorty. We're going to be discussing Humphrey, Sharp, Nevitt, and Blake Drury.
Yeah, you're right. We'll move on to some rookies now. We haven't really got much to work with here, but Janeth will be joining me for this segment because he's the man with the goods. And look at this. So many love this from you, Janeth. Always bringing something to the table. There are probably, let's be honest, 3 rookies to really keep in contention. I haven't really been that hot on Nevitt, but there are at least 2 of these blokes that I'm just so up in the air with. And boys, I need your help. We'll start with you, Janeth. What have we got here? What are we working with coming in round 9?
So I think before we answer this question, I need you to answer a couple of questions of mine. So 1, are you looking for a rookie with a high ceiling? 2, are you looking for a rookie with good JS? And 3, are you worried about your buy at the moment?
I think the buy is fine. I think job security is probably number 1 because, well, I've got enough dead rookies on the pine as it is. So last thing I want is another one. Hence why I'm just so edgy with Harry Sharp because DR, mate, I just don't see him best 22. I don't know what your perspective is as a Lions man, but I just can't see a way that his spot in the best 22 is sustainable. So do you pay up for Humphrey? Are you point chasing? Because he hasn't really set the world on fire. And then all of a sudden, an easy opposition, he goes bang and torches him. A 117. It's pretty shit up, but you didn't get that score. But the job security is great. Negative 50 break even. 2, he's probably around that cash gen where, well, I did the exact same thing here with Michael Aney. I traded him in for about 190k. Excellent decision because he backed it up. The point scoring was sustainable. The 213 for a small forward for Gold Coast to have the Lions this week at the Gabba. Is it realistic? I'm looking at him because I think he has the best buy, probably the highest ceiling, but I don't really know how much he's going to make. That's why I like Sharp a bit more if he plays. And Drury is another one as well. It's hard to get a read on. Pretty ordinary role, playing for an ordinary team, 17. But
I'll tell you what, with Humphrey, mate, he's traveling with the ball. Like he's gravitating to where the ball is, and he's moving with the stoppages. So He only had 19% CBAs on the weekend, but you could just tell that he's always around the ball and he has a natural hunger to win the ball. In his first couple of games, he was a small forward, but he's not that anymore. And I think his JS is probably up there with Ashcroft. It's up there with some of the best rookies that we've had all season, because I can't see them dropping their number 6 pick from last year. His -3, which, yes, he did score -3 a couple of weeks ago, came in a win to Richmond, and he got subbed off at halftime. It was like late second quarter, early third quarter. He wasn't injured, so he must have been in the third quarter. He just wasn't getting around. So you got a -3 against Richmond, and you got 110 something in that range against West Coast. You're like, can the real Humphrey reveal himself? The question I'll then ask you then is, okay, his buy is good. Do you think he can average 69 or 70 odds to make 150K from here? Because you're paying up for him. It's a bit different to a Rory Atkins situation because job security is not the issue anymore.
Yeah.
That's a good points that you raised, mate. I didn't realise his job security was that good. Look, the issue for me is I don't think they've got the friendliest fixture coming up. And a lot of this for me also comes down to role. So as you said, if he's playing that small forward role for Gold Coast, particularly against some of the opposition that he's coming up against, I think he's going to struggle to score well. But from what you were saying, he's getting a bit more actually around the ball, which is obviously positive news for Supercoach scoring. I do agree with you 100%, the fact that they'd be loath to drop him. You want to get games into the young fella. He's performing well. I know that he was a bit of a super sub. Was that maybe a couple of weeks ago? He was a super sub, came on, looked really energetic in the fourth quarter and just looked so hungry for it. He just wanted the ball at all costs, right? Saw a really nice mark from him the other week. So skills look like they're there. He's hard enough for the ball, I think, for young fellas. So I don't mind him. Again, it just comes down to that price, doesn't it? You know, we're paying 213K for Bailey Humphrey, but is it one of those years where this is a realistic play? It's a strange year for rookies and cash gen, isn't it? So yeah. I don't think it's the worst move in the world. Yeah. Before we move on, maybe to compare the other blokes, Shorty, you got any opinions or anything like say about the Humphrey selection, mate? Are you a fan of old Humphrey BB?
Yeah, it's a real good discussion you boys have been chatting about, because it's the old versus like a guy who's more than your 123K rookie, so you got to pay up a bit. But where does the trust lie? Like Spill said, I mean, Sharp and Drury, like maybe not as much to offer, where Humphreys is a bloke who's got so much talent, so much upside. I feel like I want to bring him in. There's just that smidgen of concern with the price tag, but he does have the runs on the board with the score on the weekend. So it's so tough this year. We've had so many rookies come in and just go out before we even get to know them. They come in, they get injured, they score poorly. Even Chincotta, mate, I thought he was going to be the saviour. Yeah, and then he throws in a 33. But look, I'll certainly throw some numbers around and consider him. If I could just throw my 2 cents in to sort of Mitch Nevitt, obviously being a Cats man, he's been pretty solid.
Looks good on a wing.
He does. He's got real nice hands overhead.
Good mark. Good
overhead. Yeah, isn't he? Really, like, I really rate him as a prospect, but I just wonder the Cats will have a few coming back. Probably Guthrie's the one. I'd say his job security is reasonable, but I couldn't see him scoring much more than a 70, maybe an 80 if he snags a goal every now and then. But he's the sort of bloke that could throw in your 40. So I don't really like picking him up for 207. I feel like he's one that you probably had to get on board with early and back him in. But Humphrey, he could be something that really interesting heat map there, isn't it? Like I haven't seen much Gold Coast footy, so I was interested to hear you say that he's actually been following the stoppages a little bit more than maybe the old CBA says. But
Yeah, I don't think Nevitt's worth the same price as a number 1 draft pick. Like, how realistic is it? But what I will say is Humphrey at 213 is pretty easy for me because LDU and Hopper are out. I mean, I could get Oliver, Humphrey, and still have 80K in the bank. So it's pretty easy for me to do this move. And also, Sharp could probably, I can see him getting to around the same price as Humphrey now and then being a dead rookie on our bench, which would just be another one. I can't see Humphrey being a dead rookie. I really can't, just on what I saw. He's a high ceiling, top 10 draft pick and looking pretty good. Come out in his own in a sort of breakout game for first-year player. So I don't mind it. But should we touch on Drury a little bit more? What's the upside? Obviously 102K, but is there much benefit trading in a bloke that's just scored a 17?
Well, to sort of start this chat, I'm just going to say that he's already owned by 33% of teams before this round. So he's
good antipod.
Wow. 15% of teams started with him, and then another 18% of teams traded him in after one game last week because I think the main allure with him is the fact he's 102K and he had good raps from Clarko. And I mean, when we look at the heat map, so you got 2 small forwards there, all 3 with Paul Curtis as well, but Drury and Phoenix Spicer play sort of complementing roles. Spicer being the more stay-at-home small forward, whereas Drury comes up the ground a little bit, which is what we were talking about on Third Man Up in the little thread we had last week, Dia, about the fact that he likes to drift up the ground a little bit, get a bit of ball across halfback, because he has played halfback in the past as well, even in preseason. So I think when we come to talk about trades, he's actually in my plans at the moment because one of the boosts that I have revolves around him being the rookie that I bring in. And I'll sort of keep that on the low for now until we get to trades. But he's at 102K with so many injuries. I just think that he's going to get backed in. And the fact that he is the last buy, he may provide just 15 points. We'll take 15 points if it means that we don't have a donut in one of those rounds. So 15 points. He should score 40 a week. Like, I mean, he scored 17 on the weekend. The ball was not down there. And I'm not saying the ball's going to be down there. But it's his floor, his average can't be 17, right?
Oh, you wouldn't think so. Look, and I think another thing to the pick, obviously, is the fact that he's got that DPP status. And even if he does become a dead rookie, I think having that DPP status is always handy as well. I think what, and this is something that I've considered this week, is even looking at the possibility of trading a dead rookie down to a Drury. Because I suppose if it doesn't work out, you're not trading out someone that could be a reliable bench option for you and actually give you some points. So I'm considering doing that this week. It's simply his price point, isn't it? It's the fact that he's 102K. You're even saving 20K on Sharp, and 20K doesn't seem like much, but how many times, boys, has there been this year where we've gone to make a trade and we're like a couple of K away or even...
Every week, man. Every week.
Yeah, it seems like it is, doesn't it, mate? Every week. It's like you're getting screwed here by the bank. So that's a big attraction for me. And the injuries as well. What have they got? 3 or 4 injuries, I think, this week. So surely you'd think that he keeps his spot, even though he didn't set the world on fire.
Can we rank these boys? So how do we...
Do you want me to quickly talk about Sharpie?
Oh, yeah, sorry, mate. Yeah.
I haven't really said anything about Sharp, right? This is a really, for me anyway, a hard one to dissect, right? And I'll try to get through this really quickly. I went into it in pretty big detail in my round review anyway, but very, very basic way. So he came in when obviously Rich and Zorko went out of the side. Zorko's back in now, back out. I'm not sure what's going on with his injury there. A little bit sore possibly, but Rich is still at least 1 to 2 weeks away. So I think what's happened, right, is that Rich has obviously gone out of the side. And I think that Darcy Wilmot, Pepsi Max King, has spent extra time down back. So he's sort of gone into that role. Not full time, still pushing up on a wing as well. And then they've brought Sharpie in to sort of, I think, more fill that Wilmot role while he's not playing there full time. So with Sharp, he's in, the 22nd to 26th type player on our list, I think. We've got a pretty healthy list, really, apart from Rich and Carter Michael, who's VFL player anyway. But the issue is, right, there's lots of players that are playing well in the resis that could easily take that wing spot. I think the wing spot in our side is the spot that's up for grabs. If there is any spot, it'll be that wing spot that's up for grabs. We've got so many blokes that can run through there. Jared Berry, really good wingman. We've got Hugh McCluggage, if he did spend time on the outside, in my opinion, one of the most elite wingmen in the club. Ainsworth is another one. You've got Dev Robinson, who's played on a wing also. You've got Jackson Pryor, who's played well in the seconds. And you've got Calamar Chi even, who I think was our best on ground in the resis on the weekend as well. So it seems like all the players that are playing well under him in the twos at the moment are all types of players that could potentially take that role straight away. So with Sharpie, I reckon he's probably one bad game from potentially being a sub or omitted altogether. And the other good thing about him being a sub from a Brisbane perspective, it's his running ability. So he'll come on later in the game and just give us that run and carry when we need it or if we need it. So I think he's got the attributes to be a good sub, which isn't necessarily a good thing. So job security-wise, he could be out any week. But again, Fagan does like to keep some consistency in the side. And if he's playing well, I think he probably keeps his spot. So do we trust him? I think, you know, when we're looking at scoring potential, I wouldn't have him the highest. I'd probably have maybe a Nevitt or a Humphrey maybe just in front of him if Humphrey is playing that role getting towards the ball. But with Sharpie, it's a really, really tough one. You know, I think he's a good player, but he doesn't demand an important spot in the side. You know, it's not a key position spot. It's not a really important cog in the midfield. It's that sort of wing outside role. And we've got so many other blokes that can play it, so many similar type players. So that's the issue for me. He may play this week. People get him in. He may even play the next couple of weeks up until the buys. But then they may look to shake things up. And I want to see Dev Rob in the side. So I'm expecting Dev Rob to get a look in really, really soon, because if not, I reckon we're going to lose him to a WA club at the end of the year. And if I was Deb, I'd probably look to move on too. There's so much more opportunity out there, and he has been playing well. So that should be rewarded. So, yeah, that's my take on Harry Sharp. And very quickly, for anyone thinking about Tommy Berry as well, an old Brisbane boy, look, I think given the fact that Ainsworth and Holman, I think they just need to get through training on a Wednesday to be available this week. I think they'll come straight in. He's playing that pressure forward role. And in that role, I don't think he's going to score overly well. He's pretty much going to have to rely on tackles and his defensive pressure to score his points. So my take quickly on the two Queensland boys anyway, fellas.
No, I like that, mate.
Awesome.
Gee, there's so much to consider here, lads. But it definitely is a rookie conundrum. I'll bookmark this segment. We'll quickly go around the room and we'll go, who is the most likely out of these blokes to enter your sides? Not to say who it is, but just quickly, JR, I'll start for you up on the top. Who out of these four is most likely to enter your team?
Most likely will be Drury.
Yeah.
Not that I rate him the best, but he's the most likely due to his price point DP.
And what about you? Yeah. And what about you, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think Drury, like, he probably has the worst scoring potential of the four of them, but I just think can't pass up on the price if it facilitates the trades looking to do this week. Yeah. Shorty?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably Humphrey for me, boys.
Yep.
There's a chance I do a couple of downgrades, but yeah, I'm probably leaning towards Humphrey for me, mate, just for that scoring ability. How about you, Spells?
I have to agree with Shorty here. I think if there's ever going to be a dead rookie come out for the rest of the season, I think coming into round 9 this week will be the week for it. And I can totally see Sharp, Drury, and Nevitt all being in a bloody cemetery in a month or so from now. They'll never see daylight in our team in 2023. So with the Humphrey pick, you pay out for the insurance. But I guess that's really easy for me because, as I said before, boys, Hopper and LDU makes it pretty bloody easy to pay up for a bloke like this. And I can see a lot of upsides. So, yeah, personally, I'm going there. But if you can't afford it, I can totally see why. And my next best would have to be Drury, just on that price. You know, definitely like the way he goes about it. So,
so much to consider. One more rookie in.
Yeah.
One more rookie. Arthur Jones from the Bulldogs. He's gone 65 and 92 in his last 2 games. I know as a Carlton fan that watched the last quarter, he's going to be a special player. 215.7k is just a forward, so not mid-eligible, but 92 on the weekend. For his owners in the first couple of rounds, I mean, he made, what was it? He made a grand total of 17k in his first 5 games.
Jeez.
But he's made 73k in his last 2 games, and he's a negative 34 break even. So if you're willing to look outside the box a little bit and you just don't think Humphrey's scoring potential is there, or his role's not exactly there, or Nevitt's job security is a bit poor, given the outs, and Arthur Jones might be a good player at basically the same price as the other 2. Shorty, you about to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, sometimes I reckon these rookies, you almost pick them on what premium you want. Like, I've had decisions where I'm kind of like, I've got no great trust in any of them, but like you boys said, that extra bit of cash on the way down to a Drury might get you, that extra super premium on the way up with someone. So it's really tough. These sort of decisions make or break us, because we're looking at blokes that some of these guys may not be on a list in 2 years. Some of them might have 12-year careers, but at this stage, we just need them to give us 5 good weeks.
So true.
Tough.
On to the rucks, and I don't think there's going to be too many coaches looking to buy here this week, but we will get through some discussion points anyway. Up the top, we have Lloyd Meek, ruck forward, DPP status, which is handy, under 400k, 392,100. His average on the season is 72, but he does have a 3-rounder of 96, and look at that break even. Very, very close to being in the negatives there, a solitary 1. So they're projecting him to go around 72 this week, which will see him rise over 30k under 1% ownership. So a really interesting selection. Now, we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly with Meek this year. He's been dropped for a couple of games. He's delivered a couple of 30s, 40s, and then in the last 2 weeks, he's gone 110 plus. Faces the Eagles this week, which is obviously one of the best matchups in the competition. Then St Kilda, Rowan will be a bit of a tougher matchup for him. And then Port Adelaide, which again is an extremely friendly matchup. If there's any opposition that you want to play in your ruckman, it's pretty much the Eagles or Port at the moment. So all positive signs for Meek there. And let's just say he continues with that 1 to 10 average for the next couple of weeks. He'll make some really decent coin, really pushing towards 500k. So it's risk versus reward for me. I wouldn't go there. I just don't trust him enough. But yeah, if you do go there and he works out, you've got a quick 100k and some decent on-field scores. So yeah, up to you, but probably not for me. Samson Ryan, so he's been giving you some fantastic on-field scores. Look at that 3-round average, 84 for some that we picked up at rookie price. When I say we, I never jumped on him, unfortunately. I do have the man below him in the Sava, which is nice. But I think the main issue with Samson Ryan is when Nank comes back. And I think it could be as soon as this week. So if that is the case, then you're a little bit worried about actually playing him on field, because I think his ceiling really does diminish. He can still pump out a decent score. Not saying that if he hits a scoreboard up forward, we'll chop out in the ruck as well, but Nank's obviously going to be the main man there, and I think that is going to hurt his potential. But been a fantastic rookie pick to date. Asava is well below him. I've got him on my side. Now look, the plan at the moment is to keep him for the year, but things could change up. We'll get to Max Gawn in a little bit. Well, we've got Gawn and Cameron here. We'll quickly get to Cameron. So very tempting to bring him in this week. The season average and 3-rounder obviously is 110, break even 55. So with a projected score of 87, he's going to go up around 15k. The issue with this, well, there's a couple of issues for me anyway. One is that Mason Cox played the game of his life last week. Why would you want to take him out of the ruck after what he did? Secondly, he's coming back from, we wouldn't call it a long-term, a medium-term injury. What's he going to be like? Is he going to be rusty? What's his role actually going to be? I see that ruck split actually going in Cox's favour. I see Cameron playing predominantly up forward. Now, this is a pure guessing games here, but surely you'd think, based on logic and an educated guess, that would most likely be the case.
would they sub him out? Would they sub a big man out, say at 3/4 time with no injuries, just to give him a rest, just to preserve him, make sure his body's okay? Don't want to overdo it in a big match. It's a possibility. So for me, with Darcy Cameron, I'm pretty firm actually on waiting at least the week. You are going to pay up possibly a little bit more, but for me, it will give you that added security. And let's just say that he comes back after this injury and gets 100 plus, it gives you a lot of confidence, doesn't it? A heap of confidence, and I'd be happy to pay up a little bit more for that. You could take the punt this week, but I'm really not expecting anything like that 110 average. I'd be going closer to maybe a 70 if I could just throw a number out. So just my predictions though, just go with your gut on this one. Maxi Gawn as well may very soon be a ruck forward, so definitely tracking for DPP status, and that takes him back to Asava. I did mention I was looking to keep him for the rest of the year, but if Gawn does get DPP as expected, then I could actually afford to trade out Asava by getting Maxi in my forward line, and he could provide that cover in my ruck, if I need it. That way I could target someone else, such as your Timmy English, who we see at the bottom, and his average is 125 on the season, but that 3-rounder, only 101, so break even, very much in the red there with 143. Look, they're projecting him to go 122, so he'll lose around 10k, but yeah, a little bit out of form at the moment. If you look at him compared to all the other premium blokes on this list, he's sitting right where Gawn is with 101. And back to Gawney as well. I'm getting the vice captain on him this week. I'm chucking the VC on the big man because he loves playing against Port Adelaide and, well, pretty much all rucks too. I'm not sure what the setup's going to be like this week, but look, I'm just going for it. You could go him or Clary, but with the history that he's got, and what, 7.3% of coaches own him, how many of those coaches are actually going to VC? I'm not too sure. It's going to be a bit of a pod VC, and then obviously I can just rely on Bond as well. Jared Witts, look, if you are in the market for a ruck, he's 575,000 with a nice season average. I think he's over that injury now, had a really nice game last week. Break even is clearly in the green, and he also has the best buy along with the Sava there, which is pretty handy as well. So I think it's a decent trading pick. I don't think he'll give you the scores that someone like an English will give you, although English, as I mentioned, is out of form, but I just think he's going to be a really, really solid pick. Rowan Marshall, as you can see in the ownership percentage here, 52.3% of coaches. And when we're looking at the top 10% of coaches, I think that's about 90 plus. Keep in mind these ownership percentages are across the whole competition. If you got Supercoach Gold, you can also check out what the top 10%, even down to the top 1%, what that ownership's like. So yeah, if that's a feature that you haven't actually accessed yet and you can get it, then make sure that you do. It's pretty handy when you're looking at your trades as well. But Rowan, yeah, look at that 3-rounder, 132, clearly the inform ruckman of the competition, now sitting at over 600k. Shrek Darcy, talk about form. The week before, we were thinking, damn, us owners, 11% of us going, oh no, Shrek. Hopefully this won't be a scoring pattern where you start to go down again. No way. He'd beaten his score by half time. This man absolutely monstered this game, doing gymnastics moves out of the ruck, kicking goals, contested marks, intercepts, hit outs galore. It was just fantastic. Such an awesome watch as an owner. The only issue here is that in the first quarter, I think he was on about 30 points, 8 hit outs got sharked by the opposition. So if he had to turn that around, there just wasn't that synergy early on in the game between him and his midfield. I think he ended up just half the time grabbing it out of the ruck, going, bugger this, I'll just do it all myself. And he just absolutely dominated for his 150 plus. So very, very happy owner. He's just really fun to watch when he's on fire. And Timmy English, as we mentioned, not in great recent form, but he's had a fantastic season as a whole. Still one of the highest scoring players in the comp. So hopefully he'll come good. I wouldn't be too concerned. On to the forwards, 500k plus. Now, as you can see, I haven't included some of the really highly owned players such as your Dunkley, your Taranto, your Rosie, because I'm pretty much on repeat with those blokes every week. But one thing to keep in mind is that the round 15 buy is tough on your forward line. We've got Taranto and Rosie, as I mentioned, as popular picks that you can't see here. If you're running with Sheasel or Jay-Z in your forward line as well, they'll be out. And then you see the three red blokes here, Butters, Smith, and Cogs. So it's very difficult, I think, for most coaches to be trading into that buy, particularly in our forward lines. But we'll quickly discuss a few of the blokes here. Errol, well, after his 47 against Geelong, he's gone 119 and then a pair of 156s. We're really seeing his ceiling, and things are even looking brighter this week, potentially. He's playing North Melbourne, and Callum Mills is out for the short term. Spills and Janeth are keen on him for their vice-captaincy, so hopefully he just goes massive. And get this, in the last 2 weeks, he's had 56 kicks to go along with 20 handballs. Absolutely crazy. Butters, I think he's a great pick, but as I mentioned, it's a terrible buy for forwards. Playing more minutes through the midfield. He's gone 146, 94, 96, 125, and then a 139 last week. So really nice 5 weeks there, albeit last week that was against North. If by some miracle you can afford to bring him in with your forward buy structure, then go for it. I really, really do like him as a selection. Baz, he's been pretty consistent the last 3 weeks, 103, 109, 102, but I'd much rather just pay up an extra 50k for Butters if you're going to go someone in that round 15 buy. Cogs, well, 30.6%, so very, very highly owned compared to your Smith and your Butters type picks, but at this stage is a little bit out of form. When I say out of form, on the Supercoach sheet, but generally speaking, he's been doing pretty well. And then Jezza Cameron, after reaching the heights of 591k, he's now dropped to 523,700. 3 weeks without 100, and did have his lowest score of the year with a 66 against the Tigers. So certainly one that I'd put on my watch list. Maybe a sneaky option to cover during the buys. On to the forwards, 250 to 500k. Few blokes to discuss here. Dylan Williams. Now, look at that break even. 3-round average of 84 and a season average, including that sub game, of 67. We're all spewing, aren't we, that we missed this bloke? But when we say all, 4.8% of coaches have jumped on Dylan Williams, and pretty much if you have jumped on at any stage, you've been a bit of a winner here. Unless things go completely downhill for some reason, which I don't think they will, he's been a very, very astute pick, and I'm very, very jealous of owners. So with a projected score of 68, he's going to go up another 30k, and I think he can easily achieve that. So congratulations to anyone that does currently have him. Van Rooyen really reset that break even, which was nice. I think it was 59 the week before. He obviously went past that. So if you do own him, I certainly think is a hold, particularly given the fact it's 26. Excellent work. Unfortunately, I did go early, but you can't win them all, can you? Unfortunate, but it is what it is. Sheasel in the red, as I mentioned, with Zeeble down back. If you have got Sheasel forward, it's a little bit dangerous during this buy. So 464,600 coming off a lower score last week. 3-rounder of 95, so all good. I'm still considering him as a keeper. Nat 5, now this is really, really interesting. So I am potentially going to look at him. Now, it depends on when he comes back into the side full time. I'd probably assume it would be this week. Still a chance that they play him as a sub, but surely 2 weeks has got to be enough for him. Gone down to 267,500, an average of 26. Unbelievable for Nat 5, but we know what the circumstances are, obviously. Break even is 101, so they're projecting him to go 28. Look, if he's a sub for some reason, maybe he'd go around the 28, but I fully expect him to be in the 22 this week. I just think it's crazy having him as a sub for 3 weeks. Just get the great man in there, and who knows what he could score. I really don't know, but let's just say, you know, it's a 70, then he's still losing around 13, 14k. Yeah, you know, I think it could be a decent play, but it all depends on what he scores and, yeah, what he's looking like in the next couple of weeks. But could be a play after his bye to bring him in, and then he could just be cheap cover, possibly for the rest of the year with DPP. And Chandler, yeah, breaking even 105. Really, really disappointing the last couple of weeks. I think owners are expecting 2 pretty decent scores, but he's done the opposite of that. So certainly time to get rid of him. 28.1% ownership at the moment. I think that will certainly dwindle if it's not this week, certainly the next, because if you don't, I think he's going to start leaking cash pretty quickly. We know that he's got a decent ceiling for a rookie. He can easily pump out a 90, but from what we've seen the last couple of weeks, not really looking like it at the moment. And we'll finish off with the forwards under 250k. And look, I hate to end on a sour note here, but there's really not a lot to see. We do have Artie Jones up the top, and man, has this bloke turned things around in the last fortnight. Scores to date: 26, 28, 23, 33, and a 42. But then, as I mentioned, last couple of weeks, he's gone bang, 65, and then a 92 from 14 touches, 5 tackles, and a goal. So, look, if he can score a pair of 50s in the next couple of weeks, he'll make around 60k, but that's nowhere near enough for me, and he's got that round 15 bye, which isn't overly friendly for most coaches. Tommy Berry, look, I love the man, but I don't think there's much discussion needed here. I'd be shocked if he held his spot, which is a real shame because he's playing the Lions this week, coming up against Jared, his brother, all of his other mates, so that would have been awesome to watch. But with Holman and Ainsworth likely to return, I just can't see him in their best 22. Francis Evans, not really relevant, is he, with an average of 32. Poor role, scoring potential isn't great. And Owen Davey, well, coming off a score of 7 last week, it's definitely time to go. Even if he punches out, say, his equal top score of his career, which is 66, he's still losing your cash. So that's it for now, guys. All the best of luck with your trade ins and your trade outs for this week, and I'll see you in the next one. Time for me to go to bed. Bye.